we're going to dive in. This is a natural history of wonder. What I'm going to do is take as my subject the excellence of the Harris Center. That really is the sort of heart of the talk, but I'm going to be doing it in maybe a surprising way. I want to say thank you so much for the invitation. Thanks for the kind introduction. Thanks for all the work that goes into a meeting like this. So could we give the staff a round of applause? Okay. Jeremy's already told you there's a lot of slides, but they go quick. So here we go. Buckle up. We're going to start with this deceptively simple question. What is the Harris Center? Now, we might have ready-to-hand answers like pillar of the community or effectively run nonprofit, or we might read the mission statement on the website. But I want to give a different answer or propose a different answer for our consideration today. This is a kind of wonderland. If you look closely, you'll see one of the earliest depictions of Harris cat. There he is. You can zoom in closely to that book cover. It's a wonderland. It's also a chocolate factory or a factory of delights. It is also a school of wizardry and magic. In other words, the Harris Center is a place, a workshop, an academy of wonder. What I submit to you, what I'll argue today, is that the closer we get to wonder and understanding what wonder is, the closer we get to the essence of this place, and here's the added benefit, the closer we get to something that is at the heart of being human. So that's how we'll spend the next 20, 25 minutes or so, is getting closer to the heart of this place and what it means to be human. Einstein was not wrong when he said that the most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious, the wondrous, the astonishing. It is the source of all true art and science. Let me read that sentence again. It is the source of all true art and science. He or she to whom the emotion is a stranger, who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead. Their eyes are closed. Alice Walker was not wrong to say, I think the foundation of everything in my life is wonder. Mary Oliver, the poet from Provincetown, was not wrong when she wrote in a poem, a beloved poem, when it's over, I want to say that all my life I was a bride married to amazement. Rachel Carson was not wrong. Rachel Carson, of course, the author of Silent Spring, which kicks off the modern environmental movement or helps to do so. But she was a famous writer by that point, right? She wrote about, her passion was the sea. That's what she wrote about, was the sea. And she was sometimes criticized by some male critics for, well, the science in there is pretty good, but there's a lot of poetry, a lot of sentimentality in there. So Rachel Carson was being given an award, and she said these words rather pointedly in her acceptance of the award. She said, listen, buddy, if there is wonder and beauty and majesty in the sea, science will discover these qualities. If they are not there, science cannot create them. If there is poetry in my book about the sea, it is not because I deliberately put it there, but because no one could write truthfully about the sea and leave out the poetry. In other words, truth is at stake here. The better your skill, the stronger your muscle for wonder, the closer you will get to reality, because reality is wondrous. Reality is wondrous. Now, if you don't believe Rachel and Mary and Albert and Alice, perhaps you'll believe Socrates or Plato, right? Plato's our source for everything about Socrates. Philosophy, that is the love of wisdom, philo, love, sophia, wisdom, philosophy, the love of wisdom, begins in wonder. So all of these testimonies put us in a position to define the terms. Let's do that. What is wonder? It is, first of all, certainly amazement, but it's an interesting kind of amazement. This is kind of what Socrates had in mind, as far as I can tell. It's an amazement that leads to curiosity. A wonder, a sense of wonder that leads us to wonder things and want to find out more. That's why Albert Einstein says it's the root of all true art and science. It's certainly a form of appreciation, but even that word in English, it has this double aspect and this virtuous circle. We use appreciation when we mean we recognize value, but we also use appreciation when we mean that our investment is appreciating in value. So that's the virtuous circle. The more we recognize value around us, the more, in effect, we live among treasures. We become aware of those treasures, and we even increase their value in our own eyes and in the eyes of others. Wonder is appreciation that overflows into wow. Now, that wow can take different forms. It can take this form, wow, an exclamation. But it can also take something closer to this form, which is more like, wow, that kind of extended exclamation. We'll come back to those exclamations in a moment. They're really pretty interesting. So a lot of people think, look, life is serious business. We got to get down to, surviving and getting things done. If you get a little wonder in there, that's icing on the cake. But of course, thinking that way is thinking against Rachel Carson and against Socrates and against Albert Einstein and against Alice Walker and against Mary Oliver. They are saying to us that wonder is the cake. Or better yet, that wonder is part of a nutritious meal in and of itself. It's not an extra. It reminds me of the fight for women's rights in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. You remember this old poem and song, Bread and Roses? As we come marching, marching, we bring the greater days. The rising of the women means the rising of the race, the human race, of course. No more drudge and idler, 10 that toil while one reposes. In other words, 10 people working their behinds off while one rich guy puts his feet up and profits on the work. But rather a sharing of life's glories. Bread and roses, bread and roses. Imagine people singing that in the streets. So roses here being a symbol for the delights of life, the wondrous things of life. Yes, we need bread, but don't just give me bread. Give me bread and roses, and not roses for the sake of bread, but the other way around. So bread for the sake of roses. So let's get into the science of wonder. What's happening to us when we feel wonder or awe? What's happening to us scientifically? This gentleman is Dr. Keltner, who is a Mexican-American professor of psychology at the University of California, Berkeley. He has just this year, 2023, published a very well-received and provocative book on the subject of awe. We've heard the term wonder and awe already several times, either directly, explicitly, or implied in this meeting. This is the new science of everyday wonder and how it can transform your life from Dr. Keltner. So how he defines awe is as follows. Awe is the feeling of being in the presence of something vast that transcends your current understanding. What he means by vast, he certainly means big, but he also means, you can feel awe about the subatomic realm, right, of quantum mechanics, or the life of algae, or the life of the cell or group of cells. So vast can be all different kinds of scales. You can feel awe about various types of size. So there's he did 2,600 interviews across cultures, across geographies, about people's experiences of awe and wonder. And he collected the findings under 8 buckets, or he sort of discovered these 8 buckets. This is how he organized the data. These are places in our lives, human life across cultures and geographies, for where wonder occurs to us. So moral beauty, that means courage, kindness. When we hear about someone else's courage or kindness, we often feel wonder. It's actually one of the largest areas of the data set. It's one of the most common causes of wonder in our lives, according to this research. Collective effervescence, so that means, you're together at the symphony, or you're together at a rock concert, or you're together at an annual meeting, best of all, right? You can feel, but really, right now, you can feel the crackle in the room, right? Just the fact that we're together, and the fact that we're doing something that we care about together, that's collective effervescence, a term from anthropology. Nature, no surprise, as a source of wonder. Music, art, and visual design. Spirituality and religion. Life and death, that is the experience of birth and death, one's own, or the encounter of someone close to us who has died or has been born. And then finally, big ideas and epiphanies. Now, we might think that the Harris Center's contribution is right here, right? Nature. That's where we get one of the sources of wonder, but hold on a second. Conserving land for future generations and for our brothers and sisters who may be human or otherwise is an act of moral beauty, right? Somebody said, right? Right? Collective effervescence. We're experiencing it right now, but there's so many examples of that in the Harris Center's programming. Nature, of course, the music of birdsong, the art and architecture of this beautiful room. For many people who are coming from a tradition of faith, this place resonates with those values very much. What better way to engage with the world of life and death, how life goes into death and death goes into life, than a walk in the woods right outside these doors. And of course, the big ideas and epiphanies, including those from Dr. Keltner today. We'll move on to some of those big ideas, but just to note in passing, the Harris Center runs the table on all 8 buckets. This is one of the reasons why it's such a special place, because there's so much wonder bubbling up here in so many different ways. Okay, so back to these big ideas and epiphanies. What does awe do neurologically? The research shows so far, it's a relatively young field, but what it shows is that one thing that happens is that you have something called, or at least the experts call, a default mode network in your brain. It's what you use to make your breakfast, make your appointments, get to the annual meeting on time, right? It has to do with, you yourself, you as an individual. It's egocentric in that sense. The ego is not a bad thing. We all need egos, but this is the network of the brain that we use when we're asserting ourselves and doing the things that we need to do as a self. This network quiets down when we have an experience of awe or wonder, so the research shows. What Keltner calls this is the vanishing or the smaller self, a smaller sense of self, a bigger sense of the world. We might summarize this as a reconfigured relationship or sense of where you fit into the larger picture and where the larger picture fits in to your life. That's one of the things that happens during awe. On the other hand, another thing goes on, which is often categorized as pro-social. So experiences of awe and wonder, according to the research, and we can talk when we mingle, if you want to know more about the kinds of experiments that they do, or better yet, you can buy the book. I have no stock in the book. You can buy the book on awe. But what these experiments were really ingeniously designed to measure is what kinds of capacities change, what kinds of tendencies change after we experience awe, or in the midst of those experiences of awe. We tend to be more social, more inclined toward others, more thoughtful about others, more able, this is an interesting one, more able to pick out complex interconnections in a complex system, more able to notice those connections, more generous. There's one study where they actually gave people an experience of awe and then gave them $100 and asked them how much of that $100 are they willing to give away. They tend to want to give away more if they've had an experience of awe versus whether they've had an experience of a hallway with, fluorescent lighting or something like that. Something not very interesting or awesome. So you can see where Keltner's headed here. But before we get to his conclusions, we should talk about the physical experience of awe, right? Some of us will tear up when we experience awe. You're not sad. You're not exactly happy. It's a little bit different than happiness, but you tear up when you experience wonder. At least sometimes you do, or sometimes some people do. Chills, so the hair stands up on the back of your neck. You get goosebumps. Why? Why would you get goosebumps when you experience something wondrous? And then you say stuff. Now, this is really interesting. It turns out that cross cultures, we make similar sounds when we are experiencing awe and wonder. Wow, wah, ah. The eyebrows go up, the jaw goes down, this kind of ah sound, and it's interculturally recognizable. In other words, mental states and emotions are culturally inflected. So sometimes you have a hard time telling what a person from a Maasai culture or an Irish culture or a Japanese culture or whatever, Hancock culture, right? We don't always know across culture what we're feeling. But two exceptions to that. One is fear. We know what a scream means across cultures. And the other, interestingly, is awe. This eyebrows up, jaw down, wow, wow. That is recognizable across cultures, which suggests to Keltner that this stuff goes deep. Fear and awe go deep. Fear and wonder. And for me, that's it. That's the whole ballgame. Every fork in the road, think of the forks in the road that we come to. where we have the opportunity to go the direction of fear, scarcity, adversarial thinking, or the direction of wonder, pro-social, collaborative thinking. Now you can see where he's headed. He's saying that awe it helps us to be together and act together and do things together. Here's Jane Goodall, and she helps us think a little bit about evolution and really why we might have evolved awe in the first place. Has anybody come across these waterfall displays? This is a chimpanzee behavior. If you haven't seen it before, just hop on, Google and say Jane Goodall waterfall displays. Chimps react to waterfalls in a fascinating way. They get engaged by the waterfall. They get excited by the waterfall. They want to go in it. They want to swing across it. They actually get inside the waterfall and push rocks down it to kind of participate in it. And then they quiet down and sit by the stream side and look at the waterfall for 10, 15, 20 minutes. What looks to us like contemplating the waterfall, watching where the water goes downstream. Now, Goodall says, yeah, how can we help but think that this is a chimpanzee form of wonder? But it sharpens the question in any case, why did we evolve to feel this way, to get these goosebumps, to not only experience wonder, but to pursue it, right? Think about it. When you get your needs met, what do you pursue? A lot of our time is spent pursuing wonder, whether it's through music or through art or through the natural world. Why is that? Why would we evolve in that way? Keltner's answer is hypersociality, that we are hypersocial primates through the arc of the human life, but also just the way that we collaborate. Collaboration is our secret sauce. Look at this room, all the collaboration that's in this room, the clothes on our back, the seats that we're sitting in, the lumber, the architecture, the internet. Tens of thousands of people made this meeting possible. This is a mind-bogglingly collaborative moment that we're all experiencing. And of course, these kinds of collaborations are happening all over the world all the time. Maybe awe and wonder helps us to do those kinds of collaborations, those kinds of workings together, getting caught up in a larger project and being excited to do it and give your time and energy to it. So to survive and thrive, we need a blend of pro-self and pro-social capacities, an I and a we. The tears, the chills, the whoa, those are social signals. You can't see the hair on the back of someone's head, that's true, but almost every time, I've noticed this since I've read this book, that when somebody gets chills, they often say, oh, I'm getting chills. You ever notice that? So it's kind of a social thing. Tears are certainly a social cue. And obviously, whoa, wow is a social cue. So we catch each other's wonder, we catch each other's cold, and it actually helps us to connect. So here's the point. Wonder and awe, according to this evolutionary argument, it may be part of the kind of recipe for humanity to see the bigger picture, small self, big world, perceive complexity and interconnection, think and feel in terms of team and we. And when we do, we can build cathedrals. Cathedrals are a grand collaborative exercise, but also a structure to try to get people to feel wonder, right? Not only cathedrals, also cities, awesome in their own way, or national parks, a project that is driven by wonder, but also there because of, for the sake of wonder for others, right? And nations. Nations are a collaborative act, an imaginative collaborative act. And we need, at our best, we need to be swept up into the sense of this broader project so we can contribute to it. E pluribus unum, to transcend the narrow self-interest and see the broader communal interest, which always happens in our national life, right? We always see the communal interest. We never think of our narrow self-interest. In other words, this stuff can go the other way. And in fact, the willingness to sacrifice, the energy to collaborate, devote, this stuff can be turned for ill, even for evil. This is Leni Riefenstahl, one of the great filmmakers who used her filmmaking skill for Nazi propaganda to inspire a sense of awe. The fascists know how to use awe. The question becomes, will we leverage the power of awe in these acts of collaborative imagination for noble purposes, for life-giving purposes, or for purposes that go the other way? This is a very powerful set of tools in human life. All right, so you ready for some awe now? Okay, so two tastes. The first is the universe. So this is the homage to Alice in Wonderland, the very big and the very small. Remember that in Alice in Wonderland? So we'll go very big first, okay? Here's a real problem with the universe. It is too big to conceptualize. The human imagination just can't do it. On the other hand, we have been gifted with the remarkable strategy of analogy or comparison. So we're going to use 3 models to try to give us a sense, first of all, how huge the universe is, but second of all, to try to, get our arms around it. It's a kind of a dual project. You get your arms around it and you also realize you can't get your arms around it. But that's kind of the fun of wonder, right? The fun of the ignorance and the learning that happens at the same time. In 1923, this is just worthy of contemplation for just a second. 100 years ago, we thought there was one galaxy. The smartest minds, Edwin Hubble, the one for whom the telescope was named, thought there was one galaxy until he discovered that the Andromeda Nebula was not a nebula, it was a galaxy, another galaxy. That's the farthest object you can see with your naked eye in a very dark sky night. Go to a place where there's no light pollution, you can see a smudge in the sky, and that's the Andromeda galaxy, not a nebula in our own galaxy. Today, how many galaxies do we now know, thanks to Hubble, and now thanks to James Webb? Anybody know what we're up to? It is mind-boggling. Ready? Your brain turns off. 2 trillion plus galaxies. Now, you got off the train, didn't you? Right? You can't picture 2 trillion. It's hard to picture even 200,000 or even 20,000 or even 1 when you're thinking about the Milky Way galaxy. It takes, light's pretty fast. It takes 100,000 years for light to go from one end of the Milky Way to the other. That's just one galaxy. So now we're going to try to get our arms around how big this place is, that is the universe, with 3 models, okay? Here we go, nice and quick. I want you to picture a 7-mile wide sphere. Okay, you say you lost me already. Well, you know that Dublin and Peterborough are about 7 miles apart, right? You can walk from Dublin to Peterborough or vice versa in about 2 hours, 15 minutes. That's about 7 miles. So picture a sphere that is that wide and also that tall. So just for reference, Mount Everest is 5.5 miles up from sea level. So you got to go a little higher than Mount Everest high. So picture a sphere that size. If that were the observable universe, now some people think there's so much more universe that we can't even observe, but we'll leave that for another day. So just the observable universe, the stuff we can see. If that's the size of the whole observable universe, our Milky Way, everybody just do this with me, it's fun. We're all kids of all ages, right? Hold up a Cheerio. Just hold one up. You can feel it between your fingers. That is the size of the Milky Way if the observable universe is a 7-mile sphere. Now hold up a frosted mini wheat about 12 inches away, like, about a foot away. That's Andromeda. And it takes light 2.5 million years to get from the mini wheat to the Cheerio. Light, 2.5 million years. Now there's 2 trillion Cheerios or mini wheats or cornflakes or whatever floating in this 7-mile sphere. So imagine 7 miles up, 7 miles over, walking, you're strolling from Peterborough to Dublin, you're passing by Cheerios, and it's floating. It's kind of like fireflies, right? And they're not evenly distributed. They're in an interesting set of patterns and filaments, but again, we'll do that next time. Okay, you got it? So Cheerio Milky Way. Now take that Milky Way, put it on your fingertip. We're going to expand that Milky Way to I think the biggest thing that you kind of have a sense of, which is the United States. So some of you have done a road trip across the United States, or maybe it's a train trip or across part of it, or you've been in a plane, you've looked out the window. Imagine if the Milky Way, that little Cheerio, is now as big as the United States. The center of it is where? Kansas, right? The center's in Kansas. Center of it is what? A black hole, Sagittarius A, so a black hole in Kansas, got it? In Kansas, got it? So black hole in Kansas. Where are we? We're not at the center, we're not at the edge, we're kind of in the middle. So depending on how you place the Milky Way, we're about in Denver. And if you have, at this scale, if you have a clear night tonight or tomorrow night, you look up at the stars, you're looking at the city lights of Denver. That's all the stars that we can see from here without a telescope. So next time you look and see the stars, that's what you're looking at, just that little piece of the Milky Way. So now You got the Milky Way the size of the United States. How big, here we are in Denver, how big is our solar system? Get that fingertip out again. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. Just like we're, kids of all ages. On your fingertip fits our solar system. The whorls on your fingerprint could be the whorls of the planet's orbits. That's the scale. If the Milky Way is the size of the United States, our solar system fits on our fingertip. One more model. Take that solar system, blow it up to 4 football fields or 4 soccer fields if you're like me and you think soccer is a better sport. 4 soccer fields, football in the English sense, right? 4 soccer fields in a row. That's as big. Now that's our solar system blown up to that size, or shrunk down to that size, depending on how you look at it. At that scale, our sun is a cue ball, billiard ball, sitting in the middle between fields 2 and 3, right? And 20 feet away is a grain of sand. That's Earth. That's home. Takes like 8 minutes to go those 20 feet. So imagine a snail. About a snail's pace, right? 20 feet, 8 minutes. If he's cooking, that's like moving through our solar system. So to go backwards, right? Grain of sand. If the Earth is a grain of sand, the solar system is how many soccer fields? 4. Shrink that down to your fingertip, that whole solar system. Now the Milky Way is the size of the United States, right? United States, if the solar system's on our fingertip. And then take that United States size Milky Way, bring it down to the size of a Cheerio. And the observable universe is a 7-mile sphere. That is the very big. You can get a sense of the grandeur, the scope, and also the limitations of the human imagination to even get there. This one will be shorter, but just in case we're feeling depressed how small we are, let's look at something small that's really wonderful, which is moss. And so many of us love moss so much, right? So many of you know about moss. There was a girl from Long Island who's not here today, but she used to spend summers here in these here woods. We made a film about her. Some of you have seen that film a number of years ago. And one of the stories she told us was that she used to play in the woods. And one of the things she'd do is, this is Eleanor Briggs, of course, founder of the Harris Center. Eleanor would, as a young girl, would find moss and lay down on the moss, right? So feel her cheek against the moss. It's just a beautiful, tactile, tender, amazing thing. And it's because of experiences like that, I submit to you, or at least I imagine, put it that way. She can correct me when she gets back. But I imagine it's that kind of wonder that's underneath the vision, to say no to development and to try to protect land so that other kids of all ages can put their cheek on a little bit of moss. It's a thing of beauty. It's a thing of serenity. It's a wondrous thing worth preserving. But then we go to the Harris Center, thanks to her vision, and we learn that the moss was the first land plant. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for moss. In fact, there was a period in the evolution of life where it was moss world. It was basically, because before the plants came, it's just rock world, on land that is. And then it was moss world, kind of like peat lands or the moors in certain parts of the world. Picture that kind of landscape. First plant on land. It made life possible as we know it, partly because it changed the atmosphere, quadrupled the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere, cooled off the atmosphere. Some people say it was really one of the key factors that led to or helped along glaciation. Glaciation came down and ground up some of the rocks and so on. Moss is one of the best carbon sequesters we know, one of the best mitigators of erosion we know, one of the best filtration systems for water we know. So now, you put all that together, it's just wonder on top of wonder. You put your cheek down on a beautiful pillow of moss, this moss that has done so many things for us. So let's return the favor. So what is the Harris Center? The Harris Center is a wondrous place. And in a way, it's the same question as what is the world? That's really what we've been discussing here, not so secretly. The world is a wonderland. The world is a factory of delight. The world is a school of real magic and real wizardry, a place, a workshop, an academy of wonder. Not so much through the looking glass, but places like the Harris Center are the looking glass, the mirror for clarifying the wonders of the world.